My family used to live in a house located in West Side St. Paul of Minnesota. This house was part of the public housing program, and let me tell you, this house was haunted. I wish I was kidding, but it felt like living straight out of the Conjuring movie. While living there, my family, we experienced so many scary things that in the end, we had to make the decision to move because the entity wanted to possess my mom. Here's a little snippet of the house. I don't want to show you the full picture because according to public records, there's a Hmong family living there currently. If you live in Minnesota and are familiar with St. Paul, think about the area around Legacy Funeral Home and the slaughterhouse that's on Concord Street, which we know as Longking. If you know these two locations, then you should have a general idea of where the house is. It was me, my mom, and my 3 older brothers that moved into the house. I'll be using fake names for my brothers. Oldest, we'll call him Chu, middle, Ning, and youngest, we'll call him Tu. We lived there for a total of 12 years. It didn't start out bad, but over time, things got progressively worse, especially during the last 4 years that we were there for. In retrospect, I can see that the things we experienced happened in 3 phases. The first, hearing, then seeing, then physical. It started out with my youngest brother, too. He started developing sleep paralysis after we moved in. During his sleep paralysis episodes, he would see terrifying stuff. When he was lucky, he would just see a dark figure standing in the corner of the room looking at him. At other times, he would see a woman sit on top of him while smiling. Or sometimes she would slowly crawl up to his face and start wailing in a low-pitched voice. This went on for so long that he became desensitized to sleep paralysis. Eventually, this led to phase 1, hearing. Both of my brothers, Tu and Ning, who shared a room at the time, started hearing things. One night, while they were playing video games, they heard my mom whimper and cry from the kitchen. The kitchen was located next to their room, so they paused the game and ran out to see if she was okay. Upon their arrival to the kitchen, they discovered that my mom wasn't even there. In fact, she was in her room, not crying, but was actually just chatting on the phone with my aunt. And then there was that other time when my mom wasn't home. My oldest brother, Chu, had the brilliant idea of playing a ghost contacting game in the living room. Rule was that he would hold out a necklace with a pendant. When we asked a question, it would either swing back and forth in a line, meaning no, or it would swing in a circle, meaning yes. We didn't take it too seriously. We were asking dumb questions like, "Do you think Tu is ugly?" The necklace swings yes. We all bursted out laughing. Then Chu asks, "Are you in the room?" It swings yes. And then we all grew silent. Our laughing faces from seconds ago were completely wiped. I looked at Ning, who seemed like he was ready to get up and dip. I eyed his sleeves so that I could grab onto it in case they all got up and suddenly ran. I was only a little kid at the time, so I was super scared of getting left behind. While we were sitting in silence, I suddenly hear a loud bang from the corner of the room. And at that moment, all my brothers and I got up and ran out of the house. There was still light out at the time, so we reconvened outside and talked about it. Turns out, before we all jumped and ran out of the door, we all heard different things. I heard that bang in the corner. Chu and Tu heard a loud groan from under the sofa. Ning heard someone call his name. Ning. Ning. There were so many times when we heard unexplainable things, but the only thing we could do was to trust that there was a logical explanation behind everything, and that our minds were just playing with us. To ease her mind, my mom would have several shamans come over to perform rituals to try and push out the bad spirits. They all acknowledged that they felt something lingering in the house, but they're unable to do much because they all suspected that it was my mom's dead ex from Laos, which they made a promise to find each other after death. Nothing seemed to work, and then one night, while my mom was catching up with a distant aunt on the phone, my mom asks, "Something keeps haunting us, and weird things keep happening around here." Since you're also a shaman, do you know what it is? And do you know how we could get rid of it? She chuckled slowly and then said to my mom,
You can't force that thing out. It's binded with the house. Now you see, in your basement, she's not in the closet in the left corner. Walk around. Go under the staircase. You should see a big water pipe there, and that's where she hung herself.
Mind you, my aunt has never been to our house. So when she described our basement to the T, my mom freaked out, especially because she was sitting right by the stairs leading to the basement. If you're familiar with the public housing program, you know how long the wait lists are, and how rare of an opportunity it is to be placed in a single-family home instead of those project housing townhomes. Therefore, even after finding out from my aunt, my mom refused to move out. All of us became scared of going anywhere in the house alone, and I recall a memory. This is more of a funny memory than anything, but this house was old, so instead of an electrical panel, this house had a fuse box. And I apologize for the Hmonglish switch up, but it was me, Chu, and Ning. And then so we had to go downstairs in the dark to replace the fuse. Thing is, the fuse box có một phòng trên cái tầng có lu flashlight the phone bay của chúng mua anything có mua của tôi tên lo lu iPad mẹ lo bị yêu bé từng để tên nó ra tôi chỉ này chỉ lo là tơ mua lệ thôi bé về bé siêu luôn cái mùng tay mua and then mua cái mua cho basement cái cũng chạy của chỉ cả mua của hai đồng cái tia của nhóm là tân đại tòng cái cause once again if anything happens I know I'm the slow one, so if I stay back, at least I could get a head start if we start running. Fortunately, nothing happened, but well, cũng nhớ được tên tay của chị tao luôn cause tên tay một chỗ hồ cái đầu chị go walk around mu bị tụi can tay so they were out of my view. Cũng lúc iPad chị to hả so cũng chạy nhớ đã chụp lờ but nothing happened. During lúc xưa mà cũng chưa bắt từ tiếng. Anyways, this was where phase 2 started. Seeing. The ghost started showing itself around the house. It was as if the entity could sense our fear and knew that we were aware of its existence. I feel bad for my brother too. He really did have it the worst. He was taking a shower one night, and while he closed his eyes to rinse out the shampoo from his hair, he heard something brush up against the shower curtain. When he opened his eyes, he saw a figure standing outside of the shower. The shower curtain was semi-see-through, so he was able to make out that the figure was a woman with a blue face. Two slid open the shower curtain, but there was no one. By this time, my oldest brother Chu had already married and had a baby as well. There was one night where my mom wanted Chu and my sister-in-law to attend the funeral of a distant relative that passed away. Chu was in the living room waiting for my sister-in-law to finish getting dressed. He grew impatient, so he got up and headed towards their bedroom. He stood by their bedroom door and told her to hurry up. My sister-in-law was sitting on the bed with her back facing my brother. She replied, "Oh." As he turned around, he actually discovered my sister-in-law walking out of the bathroom, which was adjacent to their bedroom. Chu quickly turned around to look back at their bedroom. It was empty. Whoever was on that bed earlier was impersonating my sister-in-law. Chu told my mom immediately. She brought out the biggest bucket of soybeans ever and started throwing them violently everywhere. She cursed in Hmong and had my brother yell out the English equivalent of whatever she was saying. As they finished up, Chu heard a dark ambience of the Hmong playing from the bathroom. Sure enough, all of us gathered and slept in one room that night. Except Chu. He was feeling brave that night, so he wanted to sleep alone. While he was reading a book in bed, Chu felt the hair on his neck stand up. He looked at the foot of his bed and saw a slow indentation in the bed, as if someone was slowly sitting and putting their body weight down on the bed. He jumped out of bed and ran to join us for the rest of the night. As my baby nephew grew up, he confirmed that we weren't being crazy. He would start seeing stuff himself. There was one early morning where only my mom was up, cooking in the kitchen. My nephew wakes up and comes to the living room. He sits on the sofa while still in a daze. Suddenly, he urgently yells out for my mom to turn on the TV for him. She tells him to wait because she was still busy cooking. He starts crying, wanting my mom to turn on the TV for him at that very moment. My mom had a feeling something was up because it wasn't the type of crying you would hear when a kid is throwing a tantrum. My nephew sounded like he was crying out of fear and was only using the TV as an excuse to have my mom run to him. My nephew later told us that while he was still in a daze that morning, he saw a woman emerge in the bedroom hallway. She kept peeking at him, then hiding as if she was playing peekaboo with him. He added one detail that sent all the hair on our neck standing. He said that the peekaboo lady didn't have a head. After that incident, he would start seeing that lady here and there running around and peeking at him. When you're in the middle of playing with him and his eyes start wandering behind you, that's when you know he sees her. Phase 3 started. Physical. Things would start moving around in the house. My nephew's toy would often turn on in the middle of the night and start singing. Things would get rolled around in the house, and doorknobs would randomly lock on you. One time, while I was in the shower getting ready to turn on the water, I watched as a strand of my hair started levitating. I had long hair, so I thought it was just the static. But while observing my hair, I felt my hair get tugged, like someone yanked at it. That was by far the scariest thing that happened to me. My mom had to stay in the bathroom with me every night while I showered and truly lived in fear every day after that. There was one incident that made my mom finally decide to leave that house for good. That morning, while my mom was having breakfast, she saw my little nephew run from the bathroom into her bedroom. She followed him, trying to convince him to come eat. She gets into her room and my nephew's nowhere to be seen. She calls out my nephew's name, and his little voice answers from my brother's room. It was clear that whoever my mom saw was not my nephew. At this time, my mom had just started her shaman journey and was still learning. After seeing that thing that looked like my nephew, she prepped and tried to perform a ritual to try and make sure that our souls were safe. In the middle of her trance, she felt dark energy follow her in the spiritual world, and simultaneously, in the real world, she felt a pair of hands glide along her arms, towards her hands, and then suddenly, it gripped her hands. Her arms went completely limp, and her hands were no longer able to shake the bells. My mom recalls that all her energy left her body, and she just sat still on the shaman bench, feeling defeated. It became hard to breathe for her, and she thought she was for sure going to die. As a last attempt to escape from the grip, my mom gathered all the energy she had left and finally broke free. She never finished the ritual that day though, and she never performed one long after until we moved out. The shaman aunt that told us about the ghost. She warned my mom that the entity in the house will only grow stronger as we stay there, and its goal is to take over my mom's body and kill my mom the same way. As that summer came to an end, we packed up and left. Crazy thing is, it didn't end there. After moving to our new place, our doorbell would ring in the early morning hours. When we peeked out the window, there would be no one. The shaman aunt, she told us that the entity has followed us because we made it too obvious when we were moving. It prepared itself to follow us. We then had the aunt perform a ritual to get rid of the ghost and hide us from it. We heard rumors about a Hmong family that lived there for about a year after us and moved out. The wife was also a new shaman, and she kept experiencing the same thing my mom did. It's been 10 years since we left that house and the public housing program altogether. Although it was a scary house, my siblings and I did make good memories there. We've driven by the house twice since we moved. It's pretty nostalgic to drive in the neighborhood and reminisce about the past. Sometimes I still dream about that house. Never in a good way though. It's always about me being alone in the basement and getting chased up the stairs by something. Well, this is our haunted house in West Side St. Paul. Like I previously mentioned, according to public records online, there seems to be a Hmong family still living there. I hope it's not any of you listeners or anyone that you know. But if this video does get discovered by those who are currently living there, I have a favor to ask. In that bedroom with the red wooden walls, Could you climb into the closet and check to see what's inside the trapdoor on the ceiling? We've never been brave enough to open it because of how ominous the closet felt. Thank you.